welcome to this week's Fireside Chat with Jesse. I am joined today by Selinka, EVP at Streamline Financial Services. Great having you on the program, Guy. Thanks for joining me.
Thanks for having me. Looking forward to it.
No, I was glad to have you on here. It was great to see you. I don't even know. It seems like forever ago, but I think it was only 3 weeks.
I know, right?
In Huntington Beach at NIFA. I think our paths probably cross 1 or 2 times a year. So anytime I get a chance to spend with you is great.
Appreciate it. Same here. Enjoyed hanging out and the cocktail parties and the networking as well. Always a pleasure.
Absolutely. So, Guy, for those people who haven't had the privilege of meeting yet, do you mind just kind of introducing yourself and career to date in equipment finance?
Yeah, for sure. So again, my name's Guy Selinka. I'm the Executive Vice President here at Streamline Financial Services. We are a small ticket equipment finance company with a strong footprint in and around construction, transportation, and specialty vehicle financing. Career started, I guess it's been a little over 20 some years ago now. I was with an independent company here in the Atlanta area called Madison Financial Group, and they had 2 different divisions, one of which was personal financial planning and estate planning for high net worth individuals. That's really where I started my career. Did well, hit President's Club right out of the gates, but just didn't have the passion for that side of the industry. So a mentor took me under their wing and said, why don't we look into some equipment finance? And I didn't really know much about it. He said, well, if you're already working with this clientele, which was construction owners mainly, then it should be a pretty natural fit of at least the folks you're talking to. It's now, how do we figure out a way to generate some more or generate business and leads and prospect and market properly to transition from a conversation that has to do with, estate planning and wealth management to equipment finance. And so he took me under his wing for a couple of years. And then shortly thereafter, in 2004, I started Streamline Financial Services. And it was a pretty quick ride. Things went well, but there were some definitely hurdles along the way. And I think there always still will be some hurdles. But all in all, I think we've had some pretty nice success was at that time, a short period of time. Now here we are 20 years later. In March is when we celebrated our 20-year anniversary.
Oh, congratulations on
Thank you.
On that. That's admirable. I mean, 20 years. Congratulations.
Yeah.
How many?
Appreciate it.
So you're in Atlanta.
Yep.
How many other people work with for Streamline?
Yeah, so we're still what I would say more of a boutique shop. We have 8 of us currently. We are looking to add a couple more sales people this year and some admin. I don't think we'll get too much over 12. My goal is to get to 10 or 11, and then next year maybe add 1 or 2 more. And again, I say 12 in a short period of time. We're small but mighty. We do high volume for being a small ticket operation. We are efficient and effective at what we do. Our team, everybody works hard. Everybody understands their role. Everybody kind of manages their own book of business. And my motto has been, let's develop the team and the people around me to be as successful as possible with fewer individuals than having a larger team in which lies more babysitting, if you will, of potential sales reps that aren't going to be as successful. So I'd rather spend the time letting my folks that work with me currently be as successful as possible. Instead of having too many minions, let's focus on having a small group that is loyal and determined to be as successful as they possibly can.
Refreshing to hear, as opposed to just layers of unnecessary.
Yeah. Yeah, and that comes, I guess, from just being in the industry. I've talked to many other colleagues that do similar gross funding to us, or even if it's a little bit more, but they're talking shops of 18 to 25 people, and they're not doing that much more overall volume when it comes to funding. And so I think we've really found a way to manage the process with technology, which again, limited compared to other organizations, but effective on what we brought to the table, in addition to just making sure that everybody that is around us is, kind of grinds it out each and every day, make sure that our admin understands their role and what they can bring to the table to help expedite a transaction, in addition to the sales reps just being as industry specific as they can be to allow each transaction to be as fluid as possible.
Sure, sure. And then, so you obviously have a direct side. Any indirect channels as well?
Not as many indirect. I mean, everything that we do is going to be vendor driven. So we go out there, we find our business ourselves. Now, of course, because we've been around for quite some time, we do get a large amount of repeat business from customers that we currently have on our books and within our portfolio. But everything we do is really targeting the vendor relationship to create an experience for them that is going to allow for us to be a true partner to them in their organization and act as their financing arms. Most of the independents we work with do not have a specific finance manager. And if they do, they still need our assistance to basically make sure that once they get a deal in the front door, we get it off the streets as quick as possible to allow for a positive credit decision, which then we lead to funding the transaction in a timely manner.
Perfect. Thanks for that. And then, so congrats again on 20 years, man. That's a great milestone. I guess if you look back, I mean, I'm sure it seems like yesterday with a few headaches in between.
That's right.
If you had to go back and, things lessons learned along the way, or any potential advice you give to anyone who's looking to kind of be going on their own. I know that's vague in nature, but just kind of want to pick your brain a little bit there, man.
No, I mean, it's a great question. And when I started in the industry, and again, there's folks that have much more gray hair, even though I don't have any hair, gray hair than me within the industry. Sorry, Jesse. But you got to realize what we were doing.
It matches the fireplace. It
does. Hey, that's why I got a blurred background, so nothing reflects off it, even though I think the lights are. But when I got in the industry, back in the early 2000s, the things that I think we did well, we haven't deviated from much. We were still vendor specific. We offered additional service to our customers and our vendors that allowed us to be successful quickly. But this was back in a time where fax was still popular and DocuSign wasn't even a thing. And so we had, again, when I say we were small, there was probably 5, 6 of us back when when I started, it was just myself, and then we grew in a short time to have 5 or 6 of us. Again, small, manageable growth that we were able to be successful with. But in order to have a transaction move quickly, we would go sit at a vendor shop on a Wednesday and have all of the customers that we were transacting with come that day. And I would just spend all day at a vendor location signing them up, because again, it was you printed off the documents, you had a wet signature, or I would drive to a job site. And I still do some of this to an extent, but drive to a job site if needed, to where you're forcing this deal to move in the right direction and execute it in a timely fashion. Because otherwise, if you weren't able to meet with them face to face, tell them exactly where to sign, then you would have to go ahead and send them a FedEx envelope with sign here tabs on it, of which you hope they signed in the right spot. You hope they signed their name properly. You hope it matched their driver's license, and you hope the title was accurate. Otherwise, you had to start the process all over again. So what I'm getting at is the new generation entering the industry is able to not realize some of the pain that all of us originators, owners, business development officers, whatever title you want to be called, had to go through back in the day. You obviously you could receive faxes, but you couldn't utilize those for any formal documentation. At best, it was a blurry document that you hope you could see if their signature was accurate. So again, I'm going back to just show some of the things, the hurdles and obstacles that we had to deal with not even that long ago. 20 years ago is not that long ago when you start thinking of some of the things that we really did to advance this industry. And we still have a long way to go.
To say some of that stuff's only 4 years old, but since COVID.
Right. Exactly. But what I'm getting at is some of the, what has allowed us to be successful. We didn't deviate from our plan. We believe in face-to-face introductions and meetings with our vendors. It doesn't matter where they are in the country. We have to see them at least 4 times a year because you don't want to lose your footprint. You don't want to have somebody else coming behind you. And that really is important to our success. And our vendors appreciate it, and we have loyal vendors because of that. It doesn't. I'm never naive to think that we can't be replaced, but it certainly makes it more difficult if you have a footprint within your vendor shop where everybody knows who you are, from the office manager to the sales reps, of course, to the owners that we deal with. They see us regularly. We, bring them some, promotional items, just to kind of, let them know that we're thinking about everybody there as opposed to just trying to get a deal. And those are the things we always stick with, is making sure we monitor the vendor relationship. But some of the hurdles that you asked if I had gone through over the years, I'm not afraid to say it, because of those limitations, I was very also limited in my geographic region. So I was really just around the Atlanta area, around Metro Atlanta, and about 2 to 3 hours out, because there was so much time driving.
Hey, just so you know, that could be a 2-mile radius in Atlanta. Just so we're clear.
You ain't kidding. Around Atlanta, that's for sure. But
sorry.
No, you're fine. You're fine. But in order to be successful, I think I did something wrong by not marketing too far outside of this geographic region. For one, I didn't know what I didn't know. Technology wasn't nearly what it is today. In order to expedite the deal, you had to make that drive 2 hours away. Sometimes you'd get there and the person wasn't there, or they read the documents and they didn't like something about it, and you'd waste 5 hours of your day round trip because you had to go make changes that you couldn't do on the fly. Then, no secret, 08, 09 came, and, it was the big economic disaster. Because of that, limitations to what I had by not marketing properly and not getting outside of the Metro Atlanta area, and really being one-dimensional, with only focusing almost exclusively on construction equipment, which is non-titled. Didn't really look for any type of other equipment, but that was keeping us fat and happy at that point in time. Everything was booming, everything was growing. So I got kicked pretty hard in the gut. I'm not afraid to say it, because I think by getting kicked hard in the gut, I had to reevaluate our position within the industry. It took about 2 years to really, kind of get things back on track. I mean, at that point in time, people weren't selling as much construction equipment. The vendors that were loyal to us were struggling to get customers in the front door and to sell equipment themselves. And so there was about 2 years there that was a real struggle. I had to kind of figure out what I needed to do. And those changes came from getting more involved within the industry associations, taking my CLFP, becoming more dedicated to the industry, learning more about technology, learning more about marketing, and diversifying not only our portfolio and our book of business, but diversification in the regions where we spent most of our time, to where I'm not so Atlanta, but now nationwide, even though we still spend a lot of time in the Southeast.
Perfect, man. Well, that's a lot to unpack from that. We'd probably just have that 3 minutes as informational for just people listening to that, because you brought up so many good points there, and I just want to see if I can make sure I'm capturing on everything. So first thing was, 08, 09. When you sit there and you go to some of like the funding conference last week that I was at, there's not a lot of people, not a lot of people buying. Everyone's pretty much trying to sell. So I'm sure you've seen this already, and you probably learned from it in the past. So this doesn't come as a surprise to what's going on. So it probably just positions you even better.
100%. And then I'd get my employees asking the same thing. Do you think this is going to happen? The same thing that happened back in 09, 2010. And who knows what the future holds. We don't have a crystal ball. I just know that we're positioned much better with our lenders, for certain our lenders, most first and foremost, our vendors, because we aren't relying on so few. We now have many that send us deals. Instead of getting overloaded by any one source, we have a lot of vendors sending us, 1 and 2 deals here and there. So all of a sudden the app flow is coming in from all over, from different vendor sources throughout the region and different equipment types. So again, is there still that fear? Every day you wake up, you have a little fear when you're in sales that something's not going to go right, but that's just part of it. But it's knowing that you're deep enough, your roots are deep enough to allow for the tree to stand strong.
Sure. And you work hard enough that you just say, okay, I can overcome that. So
yeah, no, that's right.
And another thing you mentioned was, I guess probably quarterly meetings with vendors. That's extremely refreshing to hear. And one of the reasons I appreciate this industry so much is those relationships. It's all about relationships. And coming out of COVID, you couldn't probably meet quarterly in person, right? I'm sure there was some of those were like virtual touch points. And while you can get away with that for a while, I was kind of under the impression where some people were like, I don't want to travel anymore. And it's like, well, if you're not making that investment to be in front of your person, somebody else is going to.
Yeah.
So what was that discussion with your team? Like, how'd that go?
And I don't want to get too political about COVID. Obviously, that's a whole other conversation. But being in the South, I will say there was obviously the restrictions that you had in place, probably not as rigid as other parts of the country. Additionally, we have aligned ourselves through different auction houses, and a lot of these auctions that we were going to were outside. So you eliminated having to be indoors. We were outside. Everybody took their precautions. You wore masks if you needed to, so on and so forth. But it allowed for, I think, a larger amount of interactions than other industry segments, or just because of the nature of how the business was being transacted. So we'd go to, I don't know how much folks know about smaller independent auction houses, but a lot of these guys are obviously outdoors, but you have a truck that drives around, and the truck drives around with the auctioneer in the truck, and everybody's out in the field bidding on equipment. And so because of that, everybody's outside, and it really allowed us to actually probably do more of a service because we were the ones still out there. There's hardly any other, if any, finance companies that do what we do and have done what we did around independent auction circuit, which has allowed us to be as successful because we were still there all the time, and we still are. I've got one of my reps out now. Again, this is not COVID related, but he's at an auction right now in South Texas. He flew out there today. So we're still doing the same things, but now it allows us to really have a nice position within the market where our vendors, what we were doing, like I said, in early 2000s to what we were doing during COVID still hasn't changed.
No, that's fantastic. And, you doubled down almost on it, where it's like, no, we're going to go out there. We're going to make a point of being in front of people, where you see the other side where people are like, nah, I'm just going to lay back and just not do that. And
yeah. And one of the other things being in the South is, well, the states are close together. And so we weren't needing to hop on airplanes at this point in time. We would, do up to a 6-7 hour drive, but you could get from Atlanta area. You can get to just about anywhere in Florida. You get to Mississippi, Alabama, North Carolina, South Carolina, Tennessee. So there's a lot of states you can cover without having to get into an airplane, which a lot of people didn't want to fly at that point in time for obvious reasons. So you'd hop in your truck and you'd get to your destination, and everybody else was doing the same thing. And because of that, again, it really allowed us to, when I say shake hands and kiss babies, right? We were doing the same things, but we were fist pumping. We weren't shaking hands. There you go.
And for those of you who know Guy, you can see that, right? You can see the fist
That's
pumping.
right.
So I wanted, how did you get into equipment finance?
Again, so really getting into it really came more, I stumbled across it more than anything.
Okay.
I didn't wake up one day.
I know you mentioned Madison, and I was just like, okay. So that's a question I try to ask a lot of people is, how did you stumble across this industry? Because I stumbled into it as well. The majority of us do.
Yeah, and I think I think a lot of people do stumble on it. So I have an accounting background, and then so from there I was doing accounting work right out of college, to which I was with a large company doing corporate accounting. Everything was great. I was on the fast track. I was kept getting promoted. But the company was headquartered in Cleveland, Ohio, which is where I'm from. I, at that time, had my now wife, but in the Atlanta area, I didn't logically really want to go back to Cleveland anyway. And so that's when I switched into, I really wasn't into the accounting anyway. It's just not my style, not my personality. And so I was looking at what else I could do.
Numbers.
Right. Look at what else I could do, which then led me into wealth management, investment and financial planning, which again did well right out of the gates. And then, but I just didn't have a passion for it. I didn't really like chasing people for the sales cycle. That took a lot longer. When you're doing wealth management, it's, you meet somebody day one, it takes a heck of a long time to earn their trust, to then get their assets, to then start making money. So, that's 6 months minimum, most cases, up to a year or longer to develop that relationship, especially when you're a young kid, you're 25 years old. Older successful people aren't as willing to just turn over their assets and their investments to somebody that hasn't been seasoned, in my opinion. Again, I did well. I had President's Club right out of the gates, but I just didn't have a passion for it. And that's when somebody in the office saw that I was not as happy as I probably could have been and said, why don't we try looking into equipment finance, to which I knew nothing about. I understood finance. He said, he kind of broke it down a little easier, that, it's similar to mortgages, but we're financing equipment. Same concept, shorter term, small ticket. You're going to get paid a lot faster. Your sales cycle is going to be a lot shorter. And really, that's what I like about it. Being a small ticket guy, our deals are moving on average, 2 to 5 days. We're and that's kind of long at times. A lot of times you can do deals a lot faster. But if everybody's motivated, you're able to make money. Something's popping all the time. You're not chasing the elephant, because if you do that and you're hunting elephants and you miss, you're going to be starving for a while. So I like the transactional business that turns often, that allows us to feel that small success daily or even large success every other day is a little bit more rewarding than chasing somebody to gain business, to ultimately close a deal that you've been working for a year, whatever the circumstance may be.
And those connections that you're making, eventually you'll land one of those whales just by circumstance.
Oh, that's right.
but I don't want to stake my monthly mortgage payment in life on that. That's for sure.
That's right.
So what advice, Guy, would you have to someone entering the equipment finance industry?
The best advice I can give somebody is, as cliche as it sounds, you got to work your ass off. You've got to pick up the phone, even though I don't think that's the best way to do business, but that's the only way if you don't yet have a book of business or some type of established natural network that you're going to fit into. And so you don't have to get into construction financing. It could be software. It could be manufacturing. It could be, alarm systems and restaurant equipment, whatever it is, it doesn't matter. You have to find your niche. You have to be good at what you're representing. You have to have a good product. But I think in my opinion, that's all this is. You have to have a vendor relation, because those vendors are going to ultimately feed the customers to somebody entering the business. You got to get out. You can't sit behind a desk and be successful in this business. Let me rephrase that. You probably can. I think the path is a lot harder and a lot more arduous if you're going to be smiling and dialing, making 100 to 150 phone calls a day. You can only do that for so long without getting burned out. So I think if you marry that concept with face-to-face interaction, get out of the office. I always say have an anchor appointment. Let's say Macon, it's an hour and a half from Atlanta. Get an anchor appointment in Macon. And then from there, build 15 other appointments in that area. Some of those you may just be walking in cold. Others you may have warm. And if you do that, sure, people, I promise you, people will be more inclined to give you business if they see your face than if you're the 10th guy that called them on Monday afternoon trying to get their business.
That's phenomenal advice. So Like I got into equipment finance in 2005. Um, and pretty much maybe not every quarter, especially in 2020, I do that where it's like, okay, I'm going to go to Philadelphia. I know I can have these 3 meetings, get those anchors in, and then it's okay. This time I'm going to go up. I'm going to end up in Connecticut. That's what I did in December. I had like 9 meetings in 3 days. Some of them are just coffee.
Yeah.
Let's just grab a lunch. Just be top of mind, because eventually you're going to run into a situation that I can solve, and you put the effort in to make, break bread or be in front of somebody when other people aren't.
That's exactly it. That's right.
You're gonna get the phone call.
Makes a huge difference. I mean, there's nothing easy about what's happening in this economy. The competition is fierce. Technology has allowed for a lot of different types of automation. And I just think, the thing I hear every day when I talk to a vendor is, I get 10 calls a day from finance companies. I get 10 calls a day from transportation companies. And they just, half of the time, they're just tired of listening, so they just hang up. But if you walk in the door, it doesn't make it easier. It just gives you a little bit of an extra leg up on the next guy.
Well, especially a guy of your stature, you walk to the door, people are going to give you an audience. They're not going to tell you no, right?
Well, let's hope it was that easy. I like the optimism, though.
So I know you mentioned earlier talking about like trade shows and being involved and investing your time in them during the downturn really helped you grow, as a professional. So from a conference, that's how probably you and I met. It's probably at an EAEL conference back in the day when it was still the EAEL. So what did the trade associations mean to Streamline in your career, Guy?
Yeah, so the industry specific trade shows have helped tremendously. Not only do you go and you network with good folks, that's, just like you were talking about at the beginning of this, you and I were able to, don't see each other often, but a couple times a year, we always, have a great time, networking through these different industry associations. But if you really put the time in, there's a lot of very smart and successful people in this industry. A lot of them are my competitors, but also my friends and colleagues. We share information. We try to help each other. We know we're not going to step on anybody's toes. You're not giving them your book of business. You're just talking conceptually about what's made them successful. It could be something about hiring a new salesperson, a marketing tactic, a CRM system. You have to have allies in this industry, and through industry specific trade associations, if you go and network, talk to the people, listen to the educational seminars, they've literally catapulted our business when we really started doing that in 2011, when we used to go to the meetings, or myself mainly, and some folks from our office. I thought it was just a party, and it still is, but now I pay attention in between the parties.
To an extent, it can be, but there's work hard, play hard, not to be cliche, but that's literally what those are.
100% true. And then we do a lot of non-industry specific, we'll do the, we're going to the Waste Expo in 2 weeks in Vegas, and we do other trade associations that we're involved in. And that's important. Again, why is it important? Obviously to get new business, but a lot of times you're going to have other vendors and or customers that go to these events. So now, instead of having to travel to them, like I said, you want to see them 4 times. It doesn't mean you always have to go to their office 4 times. You just have to be in front of them. Yeah, it depends where, and it depends how it works out. So if we can do it, have a beer, shoot some craps in Vegas, that's a little bit more fun sometimes than just, sitting down at a lunch meeting. So whatever it takes to get in front of your customers, your vendors, find a way to make it work, because it definitely separates you from the competition. 100%.
Agree with 100% of what you mentioned there, man. So thank you for that. I ask everyone who comes on the program to give me a little fun fact about themselves. So what makes a guy tick outside of equipment finance?
I like to work out. Is that obvious?
Yeah, that's a given. I mean, not to say that's a given. I won't be right there.
No, I'm just messing around. Honestly, going back to the thing, what I think, I don't know if this is a fun fact, but I think it is. With all the travel we do, including, what I try to do is make that travel fun. if I'm in a different city, I try to do something in that city. I don't want to just travel to Huntington Beach where we were and sit in a hotel. We're going to get out. We're going to do something within that city. Now, Huntington Beach is kind of maybe not a great example because there's so much to do there. But get out and we did some golf. We figured go to a nice restaurant. So I always incorporate something fun and different into a business trip. So everyone always sees me on Facebook or wherever. Oh, you travel all the time. And I do. But 90% of my travel was work related that I just turned it into a fun opportunity. Even when I left Huntington Beach, going back to give you an idea of things that we do differently, I flew to Idaho Falls to see one of our new vendor relationships. Never been to Idaho. Went to Idaho Falls. Vendor picks me up at noon, takes me all around Idaho Falls, which didn't take long.
I was like, where's Idaho Falls? Sorry.
But I got to see his shop. I got to say, I got to see the falls in Idaho Falls. He explained to me what all that, why they came about with Snake River and the energy it creates. Something I had no idea. I remember learning about it back in grade school, really do, but I didn't remember it until he told me. So I took what was going to be a vendor trip, and it was a very successful vendor trip, and we made it into an event. So live life to the fullest. If I always say,
it's all about the experience, man.
It's about the experience, man. I mean, now I could say I went to Idaho Falls. I'm sure I'll go back because they invited me back to go hunting and fishing with them. I mean, that's what my vendors do as well. You go visit them and it turns into a friendship. We do dinner, we break bread. I went to his house, I met his kids,
Sure.
So the fun fact is get out, travel, enjoy life, you're not promised tomorrow. You're blessed with today, but you're never promised tomorrow. So make the best of it.
Amen, man.
So,
I don't have to say anything else, but that's spot on. I mean, I'm almost privileged to have worked going on almost now this is my 19th, almost 20th year, and I've had the U.S. and Canada as a territory pretty much my entire year as a business development person.
yeah,
and it's like the only challenge that I've run into sometimes is when you have family and smaller kids. So when Jeremy was like growing up, it's like, I can't be that far away. It's like, oh, I have this trip here. It's like you maximize it.
yep.
But it's fun. But if you're in places, yeah, take the time to, explore. Why not?
You got to. I mean, there's been a lot of cool places I've been to that maybe not look so cool on a map when you're just looking at the city, but when you get there, you can always find something unique about it.
Well, and I've seen it because we've been friends on Facebook for a while, but you sit there and you get to see some of those things. You're like, that's cool. I want to do that.
Yeah.
But people are like, oh, I love your job. It's like, you literally couldn't handle what I do for a living. Okay. Just
right. Everyone wants to be in my shoes so they realize how hard I work to get here, right?
Right. You're just like,
yeah, it didn't come easy.
Come on. No. I guess my final question I have for you guys is, why should someone want to do business with Guy and Streamline Financial Services?
Great question. I mean, I think not only the things I've already mentioned, but we bring to the table programs that are going to fit the needs of our vendors to find a fit for them and their customers. Because again, it's important for our vendors to make sure when they turn a customer over to us, they're going to have the best chance of success of closing that deal. If it's a customer, we're always going to have a program that makes sense for their budget, for their situation, and we're going to bring them integrity, honesty, good customer service, which again, all of that stuff sounds cliche, but we actually live by it. And the best compliments we get from our customers, and I get it all the time, is, damn, you made that so easy. Or the reason I keep coming back is because the process is you make it so painless. And that's what you want to hear. People pick up the phone to call us because they know we're going to deliver what we promise. We work with business owners almost exclusively. So we're going to make their life easier. They don't have time to figure out who the next guy is that they're going to be financing with, and if they're going to get them the right contract. They want to be confident. We want our customers to know they're confident in what we bring to the table is going to be with integrity, morality, and ethics involved.
Perfect. Well, I really appreciate your time today, Guy. Thanks for sharing your story and Streamline Financial's history. Congratulations again on 20 years.
Appreciate it. And thank you for having me. I appreciate the invite.
And hopefully our paths don't hopefully our paths can cross before November. I'm sure we can figure something out. I mean, if you're out in Vegas, it's only a 40-minute flight. I don't think
Yeah.
Brooke watches these, so yeah, I got business in Vegas.
Yeah. Come on, I'll be there for a week. We'll have some fun. It's business.
So it's all business. It's all business.
Business. I mean, we'll find some fun at the blackjack table, but it's business.
Exactly.
Listen, if you can do business on the golf course, you can definitely do it at a casino.
I agree. I agree. Just one costs less, I think.
Right. Well,
Maybe. I don't know.
They both can be equally expensive.
Depending.
Uh,
All right,
Yeah.
sir. Well, I appreciate your time today, Guy. Look forward to catching up with you here in the future, man. And congrats again
Thanks.
on all your success.
Appreciate it. Thank you. Have a good day.